Okay, back to just for finishing your story. So you're in the bakery. You've expanded. You're making wedding cakes and everything's going. You've written your first cookbook.
Yep.
And then it gets out. How'd it do?
It did really well. And I think doing the media for promoting that cookbook, that was when the Food Network just started in Canada, which was about 2 years after it started in the US. And so we have rules in Canada where we have to have a certain amount of Canadian content on our specialty channels. And so we produce a lot. We actually produce a lot of programs in Canada, and some that do air in the States. The Big Bake, that's shot by the same company that does Chocolate Showdown. Chocolate Showdown that airs on CW in the States now, and so we share content back and forth. So, but early days they needed to create their own shows, and the network knew they wanted to create a baking show, so they put an open call out to pastry chefs. And no one applied.
Really?
Well, because the network was new at that point. So they actually had to contract a headhunter. And so I was contacted by this headhunter to ask, would I want to consider it? And it was one of those moments where, do I really want to? But you thought, you never know.
Yeah.
Unless you try. I'll always wonder what if. And I never want to be one of those people that sits there and goes, well, what if?
Yeah.
And never having tried it. So I tried it. And it turns out I got picked. And so this was 2002. I had my very first program on the Food Network. It was called Sugar. I don't think you could name a program that anymore. I don't know that would fly. But we did over 150 episodes. And I just baked and baked and baked and baked. And it sold actually internationally very, very well. It didn't get picked up in the States at that time. But then that led to the next round of programs. And I did a series that was about full menu, about cooking locally and seasonally called Fresh. Yes. And at this point too, I had stepped away from the restaurant, but I had opened up a bakery business. So I ran a bakery on the retail side. That went for about 5 years while I was still back and forth doing TV shows. And then TV shows, all of a sudden, their production value got really fancy. Mm-hmm. And so instead of taping 3 episodes a day, I would have an episode take 1, even 2 days to tape. And so I sold my bakery business to 2 awesome sisters who were doing all the work at that point anyhow.
Good for them.
They carried on the business from there, renamed it, and they did their own thing. And I focused more on television, more cookbooks. And then this is when all of a sudden social media started coming out. And then content could be used in multiple ways, and I could reach people through different ways. And then ultimately that carried on for a number of years. And now for me, my instructional conversation continues on YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel so you can find my older content. And then I'm doing live streams and baking and doing fresh content. And I'm traveling more these days. So combining the two, sharing what I taste abroad, bringing it back here. So this is now where you see me as my studio kitchen in the back of the house, back of where we live, which was built over the last 3 years, because if you wanted to keep sharing, you had to find a way to do it. So here we are. Ta-da!
Ta-da! And now you get to work from home.
And now I get to work from home. I kind of was working from home for the past, I'd say, well, after I sold the bakery, I had a home office, but now I have a home studio, which I absolutely adore.
Yes, because you look fantastic. If anybody's watching the video of this, this is literally her husband took the time. He's a chef as well, but also was he always a techie too, or did you just learn the tech in order to help you out at home?
He loves getting obsessed about a project. And so tech has been his obsession. His other side obsession is collecting vintage deli slicers and refurbishing them. And our basement looks a little murdery because we've got about 15 different slicers, but they're like cars. So he gets them powder coated with car finishes. So it's food grade. It won't chip.
Right. It's usually rusted too, coming in all rusted.
He refinishes them, and he has a guy who pulls them apart and then rebuilds them if the motor needs replacing, if it's a motor base. But he's got those flywheel beauties. So like cars, like everybody kind of gravitates towards a different style. But he custom designs them he can custom color for a restaurant. So it can sit on their bar but they're working.
Be a centerpiece.
Yeah. But the old models, he won't buy them after 1968, because after that, it went to aluminum and plastic parts, and they're just not worth what they used to be. So they're harder and harder to find now.
Like everything else, now it's just all disposable.
It is a little bit.
You remember
these are beauties. So now he's focused. He still does that, but his attention is focusing on the tech and this side.
Francis Cameras even has a switcher up there, guys. Like
yes. So when we do our food, when we do our food videos,
is there an overhead above you? Is there? If you look up, is there a camera?
Yep, there's an overhead.
All right.
Yep, right there over the island. And then we've got the stove cam, which we drop in under here. So if I'm working stovetop, you don't miss a shot. And then, so they're all static. And then he runs a B cam, which is just beside and then that he can move, so he can zoom in on action. Or we call it the chocolate cam. So anytime I'm doing chocolate, you need to see something close up. We zoom in really tightly on the chocolate.
I like it. He's doing a great job. Way to set it up, bud. I know he's not in the room anymore, but maybe you'll hear it later.